And we welcome you to this edition of In the Circle. Eric Lopez alongside Victor Anderson. We're both live on the YouTube channel on this Sunday night, as well
Yes,
as
we
you're
are.
listening on the podcast as well. This will be on the podcast as well. We encourage you all to are watching it live to join in on the conversation. Send your comments. Join. Feel free to do some super chats. And their new little wrinkle that we
Yes.
got there. If you want to support In the Circle, Victor, right? We're growing.
Yeah, we're growing. We're expanding our continuing landscape over the sport of college softball. So if you would like to make a contribution to continue in the circle being what it is and doing what we do for you, hit us up with a super chat. We would greatly appreciate that. Please, thank you very much. Also, coming up tonight, we've got a lot to talk about. Ace entering the transfer portal, what that could potentially mean. Still some big names in the portal. The portal has officially closed. Coaching moves still being made. Of course, the third paid assistant was made official on July 1st. We're going to have Justin McLeod from Extra Inning Softball talk about that. He'll be joining us in about 10 minutes' time. Plus, Eric, I got an announcement to make about what I will be doing with the WPF coming up starting tomorrow. So lots to talk about on this venture of In the Circle.
Well, you got to use the super chats, folks. He could be he could be co-hosting with Skip Bayless on Undisputed in
No, no,
2
no,
months
no,
if he
no, no, no,
returns.
no, no, no.
That's the big surprise, isn't it?
No. The person I'm actually going to be working with this week, I actually like to tolerate, unlike that individual. Look, unlike Skip Bayless, we don't take hiatuses because I know Eric's going to co-host the show, and I know I'm going to be there. So,
Very good.
No,
Very good.
no, please, no.
All right, well, let's get to obviously the big story that dropped on Thursday night, first reported by Justin McLeod. We'll talk to him about it as well. And really was official stuff Friday. Kelly Maxwell, Oklahoma State pitcher, announcing she is leaving Oklahoma State and will enter the transfer portal, leaving after 4 years. This really dominated conversation on Friday, really over the weekend, with a big story here, Victor, because she had said earlier in the year that she was going to come back for her 5th year, but obviously things have changed. But this is kind of one that caught people maybe a little bit off guard, maybe because of the timing. Remember, she's a grad transfer, so she could certainly still transfer, and that's going to enter a lots of interesting conversations there.
Yes.
That certainly did. Now, Kenny Gajewski spoke to Jenny Carlson, the columnist in the over there in the Oklahoman, who we've been on this show before. He actually was on vacation. He talked to Jenny Carlson and basically kind of said, look, it was one of those deals where Kelly, that Kelly Maxwell has the right to do what she has the right to do, but said that I think the John Barfelt departure, retiring, kind of may have played a role in this as far as Kelly Maxwell leaving. That, and I tend to agree with that. I think there's a picture you're wondering, okay, who are you going to replace John Barfield with? Maybe you get like, I don't know about this. Maybe I should go somewhere else. And I think that's what's happened here. But very fascinating news, big news out of Stillwater. Your reaction when all this went down?
Well, I was kind of taken aback by the whole situation, but I had to remember she already fulfilled her academic commitment to Oklahoma State. That's the number one thing. So, as a graduate, she is free to transfer if she chooses and to use her extra year. She did post on Instagram last week a caption saying, "Dear Stillwater, for the moment I stepped on campus, you welcomed me with open arms. The support you have given me throughout the past 5 years has been a dream come true. As many of you have heard, I have made a decision to enter the transfer portal. This was not an easy decision, but one that I felt was best for my own personal happiness. Thank you for being there and supporting me as I made some of the best memories of my life. I would truly miss you. Go Pokes, number 28." I feel the John Barfelt retirement had some to do with it. I don't know if it was the number one reason why it had to do with it. It's just, because we're never going to really truly know what led to Kelly Maxwell transferring out of Oklahoma State and using that extra year as a grad transfer. We're never going to know the full story unless Kelly decides to share it with us herself. One thing I will do say is that some of the Oklahoma State fans who are bashing Maxwell for utilizing a rule that was implemented, y'all need to calm the heck down. Kelly got her degree, which all you talk about, they're student athletes, right? You talk about being in school, student athletes. Well, Kelly got her degree. She got her degree from Oklahoma State, and now she's able to go to a program which they have a graduate program that she wants to further pursue with that next chapter. Of course, right now she's currently in Ireland with Team USA as getting ready to compete for the World Cup of Softball, which will be starting this week. We may have some exclusive stuff about that on the podcast side. And actually, Fabric makes a very interesting point, Eric. I want to bring this up in the chat. Valter and Kelly seem to be taking forever to make their decision public. Lena Valter,
Carly Keeney, you mean? Carly
Kelly
Keeney
Keeney.
is, looks,
Yes.
Liberty pitcher there.
So
Yeah.
you got 3 pitchers, who can make impacts in the transfer portal with Keeney, Valter, and now Kelly Maxwell. It's getting real close to figure out, okay, because again, when we figure out transfers, what systems do they go on? Do they go on the semester system? Do they go on a quarter system? How is that going to figure all of that out? I don't know what's going to happen with Maxwell. And does that set up where Valter's going to go, where Keeney's going to go, things of that nature? But at the end of the day, the thing is, we have to remember, Maxwell did everything she had to do academically, got her degree, and she is free to leave and go to another program as she has done so. So,
well, I think that the story is yet to be fully told. We'll see where she ends up going. Certain people, obviously, I'm looking here, reading here. Guerin was redshirted for Oklahoma there. I'm getting questions there from that standpoint. She's been
Guerin was
redshirted. SJ was
redshirted for
redshirted last
Oklahoma.
year. Obviously, got Elena Valter. Valter was out of the country. She, we'll see where she ends up. You got Carly Keeney. You're right. That has not been finalized yet. Makes you wonder. We don't know there. And then, all of a sudden, this next month, we're going to know by the next month where these 3 end up.
We will.
These are very impactful pictures here in the back end.
These are
where they end up.
These are women's color. These are national championship caliber arms available in the portal right now. With Valter, we saw what she and Najee Kennedy did with getting Stanford back to Oklahoma City this past season. And of course, we know what Kelly Maxwell and the Cowgirls did the past couple of seasons. The interesting thing, Eric, is that we're going to hear the usual names. We're going to hear Florida State. We're going to hear Oklahoma. Although Oklahoma, they made some solid additions in the portal that I feel will work with their defense, especially with what they lost this past season. They still got Jennings and Coleman, so Sooner fans, you're going to be just fine in 2024. And here's an interest, and Eric, I'm going to bring this program up. I don't think they'll go there, as Eric cusses himself out about something. He's probably watching one of the few people watching the MLB draft right now. LSU, because they already added Kelly Lynch via the portal, who was previously at Washington. If Maxwell or Valter go to LSU, the Bayou Bengals will be a very popular pick to make it to Oklahoma City in 2024. If one of those 2 go.
Well, they added Kelly Lynch from Washington. Heck, LSU baseball might need one of those arms. Paul Skeens went number 1 in the baseball draft with LSU. But, look, I mean, there's a lot of ramifications, obviously, where Maxwell goes. Does she stay in the Big 12? Does she dare go to the rival, Oklahoma? How will that be received? Does she go to Texas? Does she go SEC? Does she go elsewhere? Elena Valter's another one. How does Carly Keeney, there was rumors of her in Tennessee, but nothing, that's all just hearsay.
Materialized.
So, I think it's going to, these are impactful moves here that could have an impact on the postseason, no question about it. And look, I mean, everybody always is looking for pitching. I think that's where we're at now, Victor, because everybody wants to do the pitching staff thing. So they don't want to get left shorthanded a little bit on that. We're going to talk to Justin about some of the winners so far in the transfer portal as well, and the coaching moves as
And here's
well.
another Eric, and
Yeah.
actually, here's another name, Taryn Kern, one of the first big
Oh,
names
yeah.
to put in the portal, a freshman All-American for Indiana, top 5 in homers and RBIs this past season. The fact that we're in July and she still hasn't found a landing spot yet. That's
an
still
interesting one, right? Like that makes it's an interesting one.
because I think a lot of us who follow the sport as fans who cover it, broadcast it, and you can confirm with us in the chat or not. How surprised are you that Kern is still in the portal and we're in July? Because if I'm not mistaken, she put her name in the portal late May, before the Women's College World
Yeah, it
Series.
was right early in the World Series time. Yeah,
and she has not found a landing spot as of
yeah,
yet.
there's nothing. I mean, I don't think it. I take it as a compliment. She might be in depth as far as looking into what she wants to do. It's an important decision, so I don't think it's necessarily a negative. I think you want to explore all your options. This is a very important decision. So, uh, you know, that's the way I would take at it. Um, and she is a California girl. You wonder if maybe she's thinking about going West Coast, maybe a Pac-12 school, but we'll see. Some of these are much simpler. Jordy Ball, that was an easy one, right? You knew she was going back to Nebraska. That was quick, so you didn't have to take time. Some of these are more complicated. So we'll see. But you're right. We got some impactful decisions coming up here in this final this month of July, Victor. We've taken it kind of low key in it here the last couple of weeks, but we're gonna have a end with a bang here with some fireworks.
Doesn't it feel that way?
Oh yeah,
Because everything's been after the World Series. We kind of had some names. Then July 1st happened with the third paid assistant, and then we had schools announcing hirings and promotions left and right. Of course, keep in mind, a lot of coaches were in Colorado for 4th of July weekend for recruiting purposes. So we might start to see some things bubble up a little bit, and then as we get closer towards the end of the month and then going into August, that's when I anticipate some real big names. Where Patty Gasso might tweet or Mike White could tweet something, other coaches could tweet something, and we're all speculating, oh, who do they get? Who do they get? So we don't know. We will have to see.
Yeah, no, I agree, and we'll see. It's going to be interesting. Each offseason has its little own personality. This was more of a quiet personality, but some decisions will probably be made because you know this better. You got fall classes for a lot of schools start in August.
Mm-hmm. Enrollment starts around late August. Yet again, it goes back to my point I mentioned previously. Some schools do the semesters, fall semester, spring semester. Some schools do the quarter system. So when that enrollment period starts, that's when you're going to see these players make those decisions. And Fabric brought up a point before we bring on Justin. Kern maybe has made her decision, but is not electing to tell anybody until the appropriate time and platform to do so.
Well, I think you got to be careful with that.
Yes.
Stuff could always leak, but whatever. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. You mentioned Justin. Is he on with us?
As a matter of fact, he is, sir. We have to make it officially official before we bring Mr. McLeod on. There we go.
Wow. Getting his own intro here. We're giving him an intro.
We do that for all of our guests, Eric, on this show. You should go figure, Justin. I'm the one running the show, and Eric doesn't even know what's going on with the show. See, Eric, I played it for you a second time, just in case you missed it the first time. Okay.
I thought you were maybe gonna give him an entrance music or something. I mean, at this point, I
don't know about all that. Oh, before we do anything, Justin, I hope you're proud of me.
Dr.
I have not opened this until we knew you were going to be on another live show. So this, sir, in your honors, I hope you have gotten the Justin McLeod seal of approval.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Thank you.
It was excellent.
All right, Justin. We got a lot to cover here. Let's first start with Kelly Maxwell. You broke the story Thursday night. She spoke out on Friday. What can you add to this story about Kelly Maxwell deciding to leave Oklahoma State?
Well, I think it's steeped in two things. One, just in the change at Oklahoma State. I mean, John Barkfeld retires. He and Maxwell had a close relationship. He was, that they just she blossomed in college, and he was her pitching coach, so they kind of bonded even more over that, so to speak. So I think there's some root in that, but then too, I think it's one of those things where, publicly, no one knows what the pitching coach hire is going to be at Oklahoma State. Does that have something to do with it? Potentially do. Who knows? But then you also got to think Maxwell's been there for 5 years now. She's and I really thought Kenny Gajewski put it well in the statement that he released after Maxwell released hers. She committed to 4 years. She's given 5, and she's given a lot in those 5. That's my extra piece there, but that was one of those things where you just never know what piece it might be. But sometimes too, when we've seen it a good bit in some of these grad seniors, super seniors, things like that, players who have 1 year left, like that can make a difference, because sometimes all it takes is one piece of something, and it's like, you know what, this is my last year, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that was Maxwell's thought or not. I don't know how much the Barkfeld retirement plays into that, but I have to think it plays a fair role, just because she was close with Barkfeld, and whoever's coming in, I mean, clearly is not Barkfeld. What else they might be, I don't know.
Right. She may not feel comfortable with that, so it's like, I'm just going to move on somewhere else. A lot of focus about where she could go. I'm going to ask you a different question. What does Oklahoma State do now? Can they add? Do you think they'll try to add somebody to replace her? They're going to go with what they have. I mean, how significant is this for Oklahoma State for 2024?
I mean, it's hard to start now and go after someone. You have Lexi Kilfoyle still sitting there. She did well this year. She did well. You have Kyra Aycock, who did well as a freshman. Aycock did well as a freshman. So it's conceivable that Aycock could step into that. I don't want to call it ace number 2, but Aycock's not to the point that Maxwell or Kilfoyle, either one, was this past year. But it's conceivable that Kilfoyle and Aycock, especially with the right pitching coach hired to help mold Aycock, as she's still young, you could conceivably see that be the 1A, 1B at some point for next season for Oklahoma State. I mean, you've still got Ivy Rosenberry. You still got some depth there. So the one place I don't think Oklahoma State will suffer is in the depth category. It's just, to me, I think the biggest question is just going to be the quality. We all know that's going to – and I don't think there's an easy answer to that. I don't think it's an easy fix. I don't think it's something where you can just say, oh, well, Kilfoyle is going to be Maxwell and Aycock's going to be Kilfoyle, or vice versa. I don't think you can say that right now. So I think, honestly, where does Oklahoma State go from here is a giant question mark, honestly, until February. I don't think there's a way for that to be answered, especially with the transfer window thing now. It's not like they can add somebody, at the 11th hour or at semester or something like that. At least not in all likelihood.
And Justin, how important will it be with all of that you previously just said for Coach Gajewski to find that pitching coach that can work and mesh well with who is already on that staff and who could potentially be maybe luring somebody from the portal? So how important will it be for Coach Gajewski to find not so much the best pitching coach available, but to find the best fit for a pitching coach for Oklahoma State?
Well, if I know anything about Kenny Gajewski, he probably either already has a pitching coach or already knows who he wants. Just that Gajewski doesn't really waste time doing things. And I think one thing that's telling of that is, in all the speculation after Maxwell decided to transfer, you've never heard somebody say, well, maybe it's because they're dragging their feet for a pitching coach. Like, I don't think that thought process is even there. So just changing the tense on your question, it's incredibly important. Like, Barkfeld was very good. He's still a good pitching coach. He's just not Oklahoma State's pitching coach. Very good, very unique. You don't often see coaches that are around for that long and have the career path Barkfeld did and have the success Barkfeld did at every turn. even if you go back to some of the pitchers that he tutored and mentored at Tulsa. So I think the key, and I think one thing that Kenny Gajewski is also good at is he is not, was not, will not, whatever tense you want to use, going to try to find somebody to be the next John Barkfeld. I think there's, to your point, I think there's tenets of things in places that Barkfeld was successful that a new pitching coach is going to need to fill and is going to need to boxes that a new pitching coach is going to be able to check. And relating to the pitching staff, especially to Kyra Aycock, who honestly, let's be honest, is the future right now. I think that's incredibly important. And when we get an announcement or something else, finding out who the pitching coach is going to be, I think we'll be able. That'll be one of the first questions that a lot of people look at that pitching coach resume, everything else, and like, okay, does he or she check this box and this box? I think you're going to see a priority listing of what qualities are there.
And maybe that gives you some answers too of what led to this kind of a split, if you will. Let me ask you both this question, starting with you, Justin. With Maxwell leaving Oklahoma State, does that close the door on Oklahoma State's chances to win a national title next year? Does it put is their streak of getting to Oklahoma City in jeopardy because of this?
Does it close the door on them winning a national title? No. Does it make it much more difficult? Yes. I mean, I think Oklahoma State's a talented enough team, both with the talent they have there, the talent that they bring up their system, but also the transfers that they get. I think they're a talented enough team that absolutely does not close the door. It just makes it substantially more difficult. Now to get there, you're going to have to rely on, for instance, a Kyra Aycock as a sophomore this year to just ball out and to be a Maxwell substitute. And I don't necessarily – it's not fair to Aycock to have that expectation, but it's just not necessarily conceivable. Maxwell was – I mean, especially entering the 23 season, was a world class. I had her as the best pitcher in the country. In terms of the streak of the World Series in jeopardy, honestly, same answer for me. I don't think it closes the door to it. I mean, is it in jeopardy? Sure. But I think we would all have argued that it was in jeopardy this year with the stretch run that Oklahoma State had, and they made it anyway. So I don't think it's in much more jeopardy than that, just because Oklahoma State still got the offense they've got. They've still got Kilfoyle. And the Big 12, I mean, we know what that's going to do for their RPI. So, I mean, I don't
supersized edition of the Big 12 this year. A supersized edition, 1 year only, with Oklahoma, Texas still in one more year, with the additions of UCF, Houston, and BYU. A supersized, as I'm going to call it all year, the supersized edition of the Big 12.
Well, that's the thing, though. You added teams, and you really did not get weaker, which we've talked about ad nauseum, but that's good for the Big 12, and it's good for Oklahoma State because, okay, let's say Oklahoma State drops a few more games. Let's say they have to start throwing, and no offense to Ivy Rosenberry, but she's their number 3. Let's say they have to start throwing Ivy Rosenberry on some Saturdays or some Sundays or something like that because maybe Kilfoyle gets tired, maybe Aycock needs some growing. You know, let's say they have to be creative with their pitching staff in ways we wouldn't necessarily expect, but, you know, losing to in this supersized Big 12, I mean, the lowest RPI team last year, including the newcomers, was either Iowa State or Houston. And Oklahoma State lost to Iowa State once this past year already. That's what started that Iowa State run there at the end of the year, the Cycloneers or whatever it was. So, like, I don't think it jeopardizes that World Series streak anymore, honestly. I don't think it adds a lot of fuel to that Jeopardy fire.
Well, to kind of piggyback on what Justin said, Eric, I don't think their streak is in jeopardy. They just may have to take a harder path to get there. And because you know that their national, well, we would think that their national seeding would drop, but this selection.
Well, look, I mean, that's the thing, right? Some people think the reason their streak continues, there's some feel they got a benefit of the top 8 seed. Don't get our boy Andrew Haynes going on that in Texas.
No, we won't go there.
You know, we'll see how that goes. I wonder. I do wonder. You know, Texas brings back a lot of people back, especially in the circle. Oklahoma is going to be Oklahoma. Baylor brings back a lot. UCF brings back a lot. They're joining in. Pinkerton, Iowa State, I thought was playing really well at the end of the year. Now they do lose some veterans there, but Pink knows what he's doing over there. Texas Tech, Craig Snyder, year 2, they're going to score runs. Like it's going to be something. I think.
And Kansas played in the NSIC final before losing to Iowa in Colorado.
No, that was BYU. Got him confused. BYU lost in the final.
But Kansas have a good run in the postseason.
I watched that game. I think me and Justin were the only ones who watched the game. Anyway, congrats to Iowa winning the championship.
To answer your question, your other question, I don't know if their national championship window was going to close, but one thing that we all know, Kenny Gajewski, ever since this transfer portal has come into being, he's always found a big name pitcher or player to add to his program through the portal. Sam Shaw, Carly Eberle, Miranda Ellis.
It's getting late, though. It's getting late here.
I understand it's getting late, but still, from the recent track record we've seen from Coach Gajewski, we know he's going to add somebody big from the portal.
I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know.
We'll see.
We don't know.
It's a good segue. Let's get into what is left in the portal. You got Maxwell, who's in Ireland with the USA. I don't expect any decisions there until she gets back. Is that accurate? You think she just plays out, or right? Is that a fair? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and tell me as CM Punk would say, tell me if there's a lie here. Kelly Maxwell, Taryn Kern, Elena Vodder, Carly Keeney. Are those the 4 best players in the portal right now?
Probably, yeah.
How would you rank them?
Oh,
if you're a team out there, you can pick. We could get one of those 4 names I just mentioned. Who would be your number 1 pick?
Well, Kern is the only position player. So, I mean, if I need a position player, I'm picking Kern of those 4. Like that's the cop-out answer. Pitching wise, I mean, Maxwell and Vodder are tight. I think Maxwell's the best arm by a slim margin over Vodder. But to be honest, if I'm a team that needs pitching and I can get Maxwell or Vodder, I mean, I'm thanking my lucky stars and possibly, kissing the Pope's ring or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like either one of them's a game changer. And then, I mean, Keeney's third on the list, but being third behind Maxwell and Vodder is not a shot,
Well, what's interesting about Keene and Kern, and Victor brought this up, some of their chat room, in fact, are bringing this up right now, Justin, is in particular Kern especially, they've taken a while here. Kern, I mean, she entered, you broke the story when she entered. That was right at the beginning of the World Series, if I remember, wasn't it?
It was around that time. But you got to think, it does, just because we haven't had an announcement of a destination doesn't necessarily mean they don't know. Now, Elena Vodder is in South Africa on like a weeks-long mission trip of some kind, doing some good over there with some of her old Stanford teammates, with the Stanford program and all that. So there's different aspects. Maxwell, like you mentioned, is in Ireland. That one will take a minute just because played for Team USA, come back, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, there's nobody that says Kern doesn't know where she's going or that Keeney doesn't know where she's going. It's just not public. And, I mean, it's just one of those things where when it pops up on Instagram, we're going to know it, or on Twitter, we're going to know it. But sometimes there's a reason for, them waiting. And, Taryn Kern was still doing campus visits as of a couple of weeks ago. Doesn't mean she didn't know where she was going, but maybe she had a certain school that, reached out and was like, okay, well, we can't do it until. You just never know what one little straggler of a piece there might be. And so, I mean, Keeney and Kern could both know where they're going and just haven't announced it yet. Like, that's completely conceivable.
Right, and the school may not have announced it yet either, and that's that sometimes schools take a while and then that kind of stuff for various reasons. So we'll see. Let me ask you this, because I want to get into other topics. I don't want to turn into Kelly Maxwell's going to make her decision. It is what it is. Whoever gets her is going to have a very successful offseason. Obviously, any of these players up until this point, who's been the big winner as far as a school, as far as adding players in the portal. We'll get to the coaching side in a little bit. I don't want to include coaching, other coaching moves, but I'm curious, which moves have really sparked your interest, Justin, that stands out? Obviously, Jordy Ball, Nebraska, that does not count. That's obvious. That's a big move for Nebraska. It's a big winner from a box office standpoint, from a competitive standpoint. That's obvious. We've already talked about that one as well. I'm talking some moves that maybe it's a little under the radar here. Maybe moves that have happened while Victor's been negotiating with FS1 to join Undisputed.
Would you stop this blasphemous rumor?
Or is it First Take? I don't know which one. I don't know.
Look here. The only way I will host Undisputed is if Skip Bayless has to be out. 2, you and Justin and our assorted cast of characters are there. And 3, our hostess is Jen Hell and our good friend Brianna Storison. I'll explain to you who that is at the end of the show. But I'll let Justin answer the question.
Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, Nebraska, is the easy answer because of Jordy Ball, but I don't think that's honestly the answer to the question. Like, that's a game changer, but that's a different animal. That's not a true. She went in the portal, they picked her up. Like, she went in the portal because she had to. Otherwise, she was going to go to Nebraska. So if we're talking true, I like Georgia. The pickups they've made, Sarah Gordon from Louisville, Lily Backus from North Carolina. They're just raiding the ACC, to be honest. I like the moves Georgia has made. I've got my little list over here to make sure. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, though. I like the moves Arkansas has made. Look more under the radar with the exception of Brie Ellis, but I do like the moves Arkansas has made. I really like the potential with Reese Burline. If Courtney Deifel can Dels Reese Burline, Dels is a verb now. If she can do with Burline what she did with Shanice Dels, Burline is already at a good place. So Georgia, Arkansas, and then Mr. Lopez is going to love when I say this, but I like what UCF's done. 3 pickups. Couple out of the Power 5, some real talent. Oh, there it is. There it is.
I'm not surprised.
I do like that one though. Like I think that's one of those where, UCF's in the Big 12 now, and I think adding somebody like a Sona Halajian who's played the Pac-12 schedule for several times through now. I think adding somebody like even Stormy Kotzelnick, who came from the Raging Cajuns by way of Washington, like she's still somebody who has had some big game experience. You're talking she's coming off a super regional and things like that. So I mean, those are 3 answers. I'm going to say Georgia or Arkansas probably is my winner right now. But props to UCF for the moves they've made at this point too.
Well, I mean, let me ask you about, Sonia, to bring up 18-game winner, too. Was the ace of the Cal team. 2-way player, can hit for power. That could be that missing ingredient, Victor, with UCF. We saw UCF Sarah Willis take that big step.
Yes.
You're going to need extra arms to compete in the Big 12. And I think Sonia has that potential to be kind of a 1-2 punch with Willis. You still have Grace Jewell coming back. You have Felton and the rest of the young staff. They also added Ava Justman of Wisconsin, a young lefty could throw hard for them. So they've added a lot of arms to compete in the Big 12. I think that's a big positive step for Coach Paul Malone and UCF. I agree about Arkansas, Victor. But a name you did, Victor, that Justin didn't bring up is Carter. Yeah, Carter. Could be. You saw her up close, Victor.
I got to broadcast a couple of weeks of games of Iowa. Nia Carter, and I said this when the Arkansas announced her addition. Nia Carter has the potential to have an impact in a single season like KB Sides did when she transferred into Arkansas, and all she did was win SEC Player of the Year. She is a dynamic leadoff hitter. She can play a strong outfield, and you put her in that lineup with an Arkansas team that has had their moments last year. Riley Hedgecock, a tremendous growth in 2023. Expect bigger things from her in 2024. I really love what Arkansas did with the portal with her, Brie Ellis, and the 2 additions in the circle. A team that I think is going to fly under the radar, as Justin, you mentioned them earlier, is UCF. I love the addition that they had with Sterling Kolesnik, bring her in with experience playing a Pac-12 schedule in Washington, and you're going to need that when you're playing in the Big 12. And again, this is where having Willis there already, where she was in the Pac-12, and then she really came on in 2023. Eric and I saw her performance in the Eric, you're looking at what just happened now. Eric has his look on his face like, you got an Elo bomb you want to break, sir, before we...
No, yeah, keep talking, Victor. Keep talking.
Keep talking. Okay. So, Sarah Willis, we saw her in the American Championship game where UCF took it to Tulsa, winning that championship game in impressive and run-rule fashion, adding another veteran arm with Power 5 conference experience. That's going to help. And also, one other thing I want to state, whoever eventually gets Maxwell or Vaughter, that's going to be another big winner in the transfer portal, because that is a women's college World Series defining arm.
All right. By the way, Hitchcock graduated.
My apologies.
All right. I was like, what?
Sorry about that. Whoops.
Like, wait a minute. What happened here? What did I miss? All right. By the way, all right. I'm going to go non-Power 5. You guys are such Power 5 elitists, especially you.
Hey, Eric, you are a Power 5 elitist effective July 1st.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Let me bring up a couple schools. Justin's obviously a big Power 5 guy. His track. FAU. Can I Jordan Clark, man. Cameron Jackson, Adam Kitlow, Megan Mall. I've seen from Missouri. I mean, Presley Liebrecht, Kate DeLeon. I like what they've done. I like Charlotte, Leah Powell, and Abigail Knight. Leah Powell is a nice arm to add. Remember, Charlotte going to the American, FAU going to the American, which I think is a fascinating league. And then the Cajuns adding Denali Lucker, another player you saw, Victor, for Iowa.
Yes.
With Lexi Delbrig. Can Lexi Delbrig be healthy? Can she add a punch in that circle for Louisiana? They added Sam Rowe from Florida as well. Those are some mid-majors, not Power 5, quote-unquote, that I like so far this offseason. You did any disagreements there, Justin?
Did you want Victor or Justin?
Justin, I think, first.
No, I actually those are two of non-Power 5s that I really like. Like FAU, I mean, you have to think that's a team that this past year, first-year head coach, ton of seniors, goes in 6-win improvement against a much tougher schedule, a much bigger factor in the American, in Conference USA the year before they go to the American. And I really like some of those pickups at FAU. You mentioned Cameron Jackson from Duke. You didn't mention Trinity Schlotterbeck from Maryland. Like, that's going to be somebody who can help him with the arm and the bat. I really like Liebrecht. That's a Lipscomb transfer. So, like, I really think they picked up some really good ones there going into the American. I guess they're transfer you a little bit, kind of what Charlotte has been, FAU's doing. But the pickups they've made, one thing I like about it, if you look at it, it's a lot of one-year players who can come in, who can help, who can vault the program. And then it gives them a chance to get their recruits in. It's kind of similar to what Jerry Glasgow did at ULL in his beginning years, and we've seen how well that's worked for him. And then with the Cajuns, I like the pickups Jerry Glasgow's made, and I think you hit on it. Lexi Delbrig and her health is going to be the key to the Cajun season, because if Lexi Delbrig can be healthy, that is an arm that is going to make a big difference in the Sun Belt for the Cajuns in the state of Louisiana. If she's not, that's a little more interesting.
No doubt, Jerry, they're doing a nice job. Let's talk about some of the coaching moves that has taken place here while we got you here. To me, the big move recently that's taken place is Arkansas. DJ Gasso going from Utah to Arkansas. You can make the argument, guys, this is the biggest transaction from a coaching standpoint of this offseason. Assistant or head coach. I think that highly of DJ. Adding to an Arkansas offense that was up and down a little bit, that's the one that stands out to me. What stands out to you, Victor? And then we'll get Justin's thoughts.
Well, with the addition of that third paid assistant, I like what Georgia did, picking up Amber Freeman. You talk about player from Cal leaving to go into another conference. Now you get Amber Freeman joining Tony Baldwin's staff at Georgia to go along with those notable transfers. But I like that. I like that addition. That is a great addition to his staff. I really love what Mississippi State did, bringing in Taryn Moab McKinney to fill in that pitching staff for Samantha Ricketts. Obviously, she had some success in Arizona, elected, but then now she's in Starkville, a young staff that had promise in 2023. You bring her into Starkville, and now you have a chance to really solidify that Bulldogs coaching staff with Ricketts, Moab McKinney, and what they already have in place in Starkville. I like that move. But of course, number one is going to be DJ Gasso.
Yeah, no doubt. Before we get to Justin's thoughts on that, let me get some comments here. Sydney Greenstreet saying OU ain't picking up another pitcher. I know there's a lot of chat about OU's pitching. Let's not forget they've added a pitcher already. Mm-hmm. The youngster, Moticelli, right? Is that how you pronounce it, Justin?
From Wisconsin.
Moticelli, yeah.
So they've added her, and you got to remember, S.J. Guerin, they redshirted. Mm-hmm. To me, that's an addition. They decided, I remember I spoke to Coach Gasso about it. They decided to redshirt her because they knew that she wasn't going to be able to throw much innings anyway. She was right. I mean, and by the way, you have Kirsten Deal, who's the number one pitcher coming out of high school, entering her second year, and she had experience there to go along with Nicole May. Could they add somebody? Justin, what's your thoughts here? Everybody's just, I mean, we're in this habit now. Every time there's a pitcher that enters the portal, it's about Oklahoma. Where do you think Oklahoma is in the mix for any of the pitchers left here? Do you think they might go after? Or do you think? I think we're really selling short the Oklahoma staff here. Let's not act like they're struggling.
No, I mean I think Maxwell's a wild card. Sure, we don't know what she's going to do. Is OU a possibility? Probably a possibility. It's definitely not a foregone conclusion like some people think it is. I'll say that. But as it is, I really don't know that OU is going to take it, is going to pick up another pitcher. And if that's the case, I'm not a huge fan of Oklahoma's pitching staff going into the year. I think they need another pitcher. Well, no, that's not true. I think they needed some different bullpen work. I'm not a fan of the way that bullpen shakes out right now. But that said, even with Maxwell being a wild card, I just don't know that I see OU picking up another pitcher. They probably got the room for one because as it stands right now, inning distribution, which I think was in the comment we're up in here too. I don't know how that's going to shake out. But I don't know that I see Oklahoma picking up another pitcher. And I may eat those words and Maxwell goes there, a week after she's back from Ireland. Okay, I'm going to OU. It's possible. I just don't. I don't know that I see that. I just don't know that I see it. And I think, too, we've seen, and I know there's a bunch of OU fans in the comments. I get it. I'm going to say it anyway. We have not seen OU have the allure for some of these transfers. Like, if you look at the transfers that OU's picked up, and you look at some of the high-powered transfers who have gone elsewhere that Oklahoma was in the mix for, one thing we've seen this year that we didn't see a lot last year is there were people who told Oklahoma no. And that didn't happen really at all last year. They got who they wanted. This year, they didn't get everybody they wanted. And I think that's something not to be missed. No, Oklahoma's not struggling.
Of course not.
But
they're going to be the favorites going into next year.
They are, but they're not going to go next year the same way they came into this year, though. They're not going to be the prohibitive.
No, but let me ask you that. I agree. But who's got bigger questions in the pitching? Is it Oklahoma or say UCLA?
Well, they both do.
Right. But I think Oklahoma has more. I have bigger questions about UCLA. Bigger questions.
I do. And to jump in, guys, the thing about Oklahoma's staff is that we know what Nicole May can do in the circle. We've seen bits and pieces of what Jordan Deal can do in the circle.
Kirsten Deal.
S.J. Guerin.
Right, those are the two kids.
Factor. And then you got Monticelli. Now, here's the thing I think people need to remember. I saw Oklahoma fans tweeting about this. Monticelli is going to be working with a much better offense and a much efficient and cleaner defense behind her than she was with Wisconsin last year. So her numbers are naturally going to go downward in terms of her ERA. Her strikeout numbers are going to go up working with Jen Rocha.
Well, I
And
mean, it's a lot of assumptions there. What I would say, guess what? We might be getting back to normal in college softball, where sometimes some years you have to depend on young arms. No,
right. Oh, I understand that. All I'm simply saying is that the moves that Oklahoma made, particularly this year, are fitting what they're looking to have. You lose a tremendous leader behind the plate.
No, they're not.
How so, Justin? Go ahead.
Sorry, my feed blipped out. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I was just saying, Justin, that the moves that Oklahoma made this year in terms with Monticelli and Riley Ludlam, who can catch and also play some infield for them, those are solid. While they're not the splashy additions that Oklahoma has made in the transfer portal in the past, they are great additions for what Oklahoma has coming back in 2024, led by Coleman and Jennings. Now, that's just me. That's just me thinking about what they're going to be working with or how they're going to be made better with Gasso and the coaching staff. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see.
We will see. We will see.
Now, again, we still got a handful of transfers to go, so I think things could change. But again, at some point, everybody's going to have young pitching. Can't have veterans every year. I mean, I'm sorry. That's kind of how that works. So we'll see what happens. I think I think a lot of big major programs are still looking for pitching and young pitching, and we'll see.
Because look at the names that are left, not just in Oklahoma. Florida State, no Cass Sandicott. UCLA, no Bacon Ferrema. We talked about Oklahoma with Maxwell. Stanford with Nevada, although they still have Kennedy there.
I was going to say, he's got Krause too.
Yeah, they do. This year, the gap is shrinking, but it's simply because of all the star power that has left those respective programs.
It's graduations, right? I mean, it just is what it is. Just part of college athletics. So we'll see what happens. But let's get back to the coaching moves. We got spun in on the Oklahoma pitching stuff. Wow. Justin, give me your big coaching move.
Well, you already talked about DJ Gasso going to Arkansas. I honestly like Mike Roberts going to Wisconsin. That one just happened this past week. That's one that I do like. Roberts has got a history of some success developing pitchers, getting a lot out of pitchers. Was successful himself in his own playing career. He's been around. He knows his stuff. And Wisconsin got him over some other suitors. He was already at Virginia. And then there were some other ones that came after him, but Wisconsin got him, gets him closer to family that's up there. His son is coached at D2, some things like that. So I like that one, though, because I think it adds just –
it looks like we may have lost Justin there, Eric, while he was talking, sir.
Technology. He froze up a little bit. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. If you get Justin back on. All right, so we'll see what happens. Other moves, coaching moves of note. I agree. The DJ Gasso move, to me, is as we mentioned, is the number one move there. Utah, though, did a nice job kind of bouncing back. They got Courtney Martinez coming there. So rumored. We'll see on that one. That's the scale deal. There you go. We got Justin back.
There we go.
You hear us now, Justin?
Oh, I could hear you the whole time. It never went out on my end for some reason.
Wow.
Oh, okay. So what do you have to add here in the moves?
I do like the Mike Roberts one, and I think you're right about Courtney Martinez in Utah. I think that's one that's not going to get headlines. It was a headline when it happened, when I wrote the scoop and all that. But, it's not going to necessarily grab your headlines as one of the big moves. But I think it's pretty good. I think it's a pretty solid move. Courtney Martinez has been around a while. She's gotten a lot of interest. She said no to a lot of jobs, said yes to Utah. So, I think you're right. You're not replacing DJ Gasso's star power in terms of his name or whatever. And you're not going to be able to bring in a coach to Utah, who's led an offense to the World Series. But I think Courtney Martinez is certainly a more than capable coach, and I think that was a solid replacement pick for Utah for sure. The hire.
Paige Parker not going. Stupefied asking, did Paige Parker go to Arkansas with Gasso? No, is that correct, Justin? She is staying at Utah.
No, yeah, she's staying at Utah.
Staying at Utah there. Cal's had a rough offseason, by the way. I mean, lost some talented players in the portal and their coaching staff. You mentioned Freeman Victor going to Georgia to be the third paid assistant. Becca Mueller, the hitting coach for Cal, is now at UCF. So that is Cal's had a tough, rough offseason for Cal from that standpoint of a coaching moves there. You don't see that as often. So UCF adding Becca Mueller, coming from that Megan Bartlett coaching tree. Tony Baldwin, she spent time at Georgia as well, was an assistant under Megan Bartlett at Ball State. Really one of the young offensive minds that people think about there. Obviously, the big moves that people are focusing on, Chelsea Barkley, the new pitching coach at Florida. That headlines the pitching coach's moves. Taryn Moat back in the state of Mississippi, Justin. This is intriguing to me. She had success at Ole Miss. Remember that? Helped them get to a super regional, went to Arizona, helped them get back to the World Series a couple times, now joined Samantha Ricketts in Mississippi State. Ironically, Moat helped Arizona beat Mississippi State a couple of years ago in the super regionals in Starkville. Now she joins back in the state of Mississippi in the SEC. Your thoughts on Taryn's move there?
I mean, it's an interesting one, honestly, because you're right. You rarely, when you're in the market for a coach, you rarely are able to find somebody who's not been, like, you think about Taryn Moat, you think Arizona. You think, oh, she's been in Arizona for a while. You think, oh, yeah, she had that thing at Ole Miss for a few years, but she's in Arizona. She's Arizona. But you think about it, it's honestly a really good fit for Mississippi State because she has the familiarity. She has the familiarity with the conference, with the region. Think about Caitlin Lee. Caitlin Lee was a JUCO product. And I give Moat credit for helping and making Caitlin Lee into what she was in that tournament, in that SEC tournament in the postseason run. Like, Moat played a role in that. And I think that's where that's what Mississippi State wants her to be able to do, is be able to pull those kids in to Mississippi State, whether it's in-state JUCOs or whatever it is, and be able to turn them into something, go from good to great. I mean, I like the move. From Mississippi State standpoint, I absolutely like the move. And for Moat, that's quite a landing spot to go back into the SEC. You could do worse. But I think that familiarity with the conference, with the state, let's be honest, she's probably even familiar with the closest major airports and stuff like that. So the little things you don't necessarily think about when you're getting into a new coaching job, Moat kind of checks some of those boxes already. I quite like it, actually. I think that could be kind of a sleeper move by the end of it. But I do quite like it.
I like that move as well for Mississippi State. I think she can make a difference there. Everywhere she's gone, they won. Am I missing something? All right, just checking. That's all I got to say. She's won everywhere she's gone. So, yeah, we'll see about that. Not a lot of head coaching jobs open, but there are a few. One in particular, Ball State, Lacey Shore, who she goes by now, formerly Lacey Wood, leaving there to be joining Jenny Allard, who's the new head coach at Pittsburgh. That's going to take me a while to get used to saying that. I'm still confused by that. I have to check my notes every time on that one. Is that the best job available right now? Head coaching.
By a large margin.
Which is kind of quiet for this type of year. We're not used to this. This is very weird July.
It's a weird year.
Yeah. Kendra Lynch, formerly Kendra Lynch, who was at Greensboro. Yeah. She's now at Indiana. Greensboro has lost her 2 assistants. So Coach Brenneman's got to rebuild her staff, Justin.
Yeah, and that's a tournament team. That's a conference champion. I mean, Bethany Wells goes to be hitting coach at Michigan State. Kirchhoff goes to Indiana. I guess UNC Greensboro is just a breeding ground for the Big Ten now. Is that how it works?
Apparently.
Wow.
Seems that way to me.
I will say this: I don't envy Janelle Brenneman because Greensboro can sometimes is one of those schools that can be a hard place to get somebody to come to be able to find proven talent. So she clearly can pick talent, but it's a good program in terms of their success and the talent they have there and all that. So I'm not jealous of her desk this summer. She needs a lot of those organizers that stack like 7 high. All the paperwork I'm sure she's probably having to do.
Yeah.
All right, a couple last things before we let you go, Justin. Conference realignment now. We're past July 1st, so we're going to have a lot of, I think the stats like 10% of Division I changing conferences this year or something like that, or something pretty close. It's a significant number. We're not going to go over all of them. I'd rather wait till you break that down when you do your daily, your traditional forecast and update us on where everybody's playing. Now and back in December and January when you start writing those forecasts. Yep. Good luck, by the way.
Godspeed.
Don't. Yeah. Good luck with that.
Have 3 of these on standby.
Let me ask you both this question: of all the schools that made jumps to a new conference, give me a school where you're like, hey, watch out for this school. This program can make an immediate impact and make some noise in the new conference they're in. And give me a school that you're like, boy, I wonder how they're going to do. I have questions. Fill in the blanks there, Justin.
Blank number 1's BYU. I think one thing about BYU for me is they're not scared of anything. They may not always be the best team on the block, but they're not scared of anything. And I think that's important when you get into the Big 12 because it can sometimes be easy for a team to go into Norman, into Austin, in the last several years, into Stillwater, and to just fall apart. There are some places in the Big 12 that are hard to play, especially with the travel of somebody like BYU. But BYU's, not always the best team, but they're not scared of anything, and they always win some games that on paper they have no business winning. Am I saying they're going to go in and upset Oklahoma? Absolutely not. They might, but I'm not saying that. What I'm getting at, though, is I think they've got a really solid shot. They've got talent on their roster already, but I think they've got a really solid shot at just making some noise in the Big 12. And then I'm going to stay in the Big 12 on the other side of the coin, and I'm going to say Houston. They've gotten a solid transfer class. They've had a complete coaching staff overhaul under Kristen Vesely. Both assistants left. She's hired 2 new ones. She's hired 2 new ones with
Hope Troutwine.
She's hired 2 assistants with playing star power, name star power.
Not either.
Troutwine's never coached. Nadia Taylor's coached 1 year. So there's a potential. There's certainly a high ceiling between the on-field talent of those coaches and of the transfer class that she's already gotten, including Jazz Rollin from Arizona State by way of Missouri. But I think Houston also they have a high ceiling, but they also have, I guess the opposite of a high ceiling is a low floor potential. So I'm going to say Houston. So I'm going to say in the Big 12 for both, but I'm going to say Houston on that bottom end of somebody who, I have question marks going into the year just for how they're going to look and perform.
Interesting. For the team that I think will be an immediate contender, I am going to go with Charlotte. I like the additions that they made via the portal. They have that experience winning the conference regular season last year, making it to the NCAA tournament. Also FAU. Eric referenced them earlier. The additions that were added, Jordan Clark in her second season, really building up that program. Make the first year that impactful year. Get those recruits that are maybe on the fence, get them interested in joining FAU and building that next chapter of FAU softball. As I got Charlotte and I got FAU in terms of teams that could compete immediately. For teams who might struggle a little bit, I tend to agree with Justin on Houston. I'm not as down on the Cougars in the Big 12 as Justin is. But when you have so many new faces, plus the fact that you got 2 coaches who are new to your program and one with Coach Troutwine that hasn't had real coaching experience, there will be some growing pains. I think Houston in year 2 will be fine when the Big 12 kind of resets to its form as Texas and Oklahoma lead the conference. But for this year, Houston may be in that bottom third of the conference if things get off to a slow start.
I agree with Vic on Charlotte. I think Charlotte's going to push. And maybe, again, Wichita will probably be the preseason favorite, but I think Charlotte, now that they got over the hump, won a regular season title in USA, got to the NCAA tournament, got to a regional final. They finally got over the hump. Now they go to new league in the American. I agree with Victor on Charlotte. And I think FAU as an athletic department will, I think, really do really well in the American. And I think the thing, if you're excited, if you're Jordan Clark in Florida Atlantic, UCF had a White as an AD, Danny White, and they hired a young coach named Sidney Ball Malone. They did pretty well in the American. FAU's AD, Brian White, the brother of Danny White, he hired Jordan Clark. That could be, if you're looking for synergy there, symmetry. That could be it for FAU. I'm wondering about Campbell and the Colonial. I'm going to go a little off the board here. They had just had so much success in the Big South. Mm-hmm. Now you go to the Colonial. It doesn't sound like a big move, but you know how this is, guys. Different traveling trips, that they're used to. Your playing schools are not used to. I'm curious how they will fare. I'm not saying they're going to struggle, but I'm kind of curious on that transition, how that's going to do. We kind of saw what Murray State kind of, going to the Valley took some lumps.
They had a rough first year in the Valley.
Just because, again, you're used to new trips in a conference. I'm kind of intrigued to see how Campbell does going to the Colonial there.
Good pull.
And then Liberty, I don't question them from an on-the-field standpoint. I question more how are they going to be affected being in Conference USA with the look of that league. It's not as strong as the A-Sun, so they should dominate. But, as you know, does that hurt their resume? Now, Dot Richardson's going to play brutal, tough,
insane non-conference.
But I don't know if a team from Conference USA can get in the mix to host like a Liberty potentially could have or had flirted with while in the A-Sun. Who's the challenger there in CUSA to Liberty? I don't.
Probably
Jacksonville State that's joining the league with them. I joke, but I'm serious.
I think it's the first one that comes to my mind is Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
They
had a down year a little bit. No, I don't want to say a down year. They kind of.
Well, no, they did have a down year. Certainly coming off a conference year. They've also added some transfers that might be better than the players they lost to the portal too, which makes it interesting.
True.
And you've always got Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State sitting there. So
yeah, I don't know what to make of it. And this is a league that's been a proud league in softball. It's going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm just curious how the numbers will work there. And in fairness, how will the A-Sun be without Liberty? Because let's be real, Victor, Liberty has helped the A-Sun a lot grow as a softball league.
They're losing their linchpin program in Liberty. They lost Jacksonville State, who was on top of the league the first half of the season. And remember, gentlemen, July 1st, next year, Kennesaw State joins Conference USA as well. So that's three programs who have all made the NCAA tournament within the last 4 years, leaving the A-Sun. Now, granted, Jacksonville State made it when they were in Ohio Valley before they joined the A-Sun, but those are still NCAA perennial teams nonetheless. So the landscape of the A-Sun will definitely change. That's going to favor Central Arkansas. I think North Florida, Jeff Conrad in his second year, he has a chance. He had a big transfer from Oregon, joined their program for 2024. That could be a significant impact. And yes, I'm going to blow. Yeah, Eric's going to trumpet for UCF. I'm going to trumpet for the Fighting Shelly Robinsons of what they did this past season. Look out for Stetson in 2024. Led by that 1-2 count. I'm sorry, Eric. If you're going to trump for UCF, I'm going to trumpet for Stetson. That's just how it is.
I'm not going to add anymore. I'm not going to add it.
You got to remember, too, that UCA had this great year this year and lost both pitchers.
Yeah, right. Johnson now at Alabama.
So, well, no, Johnson's graduated.
Johnson graduated. Beaver went to Alabama. Excuse me.
Yeah, Beaver's at Alabama in a Bama uniform to stay now.
Yes.
Just to clarify, Johnson's graduated.
Yes. So now they did have another arm via the portal, but that year with Johnson and Beaver, that was a magical situation for Coach Parsons, and now Central Arkansas is they may drop back down. I still think they'll be the preseason favorite in the A-Sun. Them potentially.
They will, but it changes the landscape of the A-Sun because now the A-Sun, you lose Liberty and you lose the main strengths of UCA, and it just changes the landscape of the conference.
It's going to be difficult for the A-Sun to be a multi-bid league again.
It's going to be back to being a one-bid league in all likelihood.
Right? I mean, that was the thing. They had a great year. They were a two-bid league.
By the way, gentlemen, Central Arkansas will be hosting, in all likelihood, the A-Sun tournament in this upcoming season. So keep that in mind as well.
Very good.
Keep that in mind as well.
All right, we got a long ways to go before we get to 2024. Let's we do. This summer. Justin, we will let you go. You've been very kind. Anything you want to promote?
Let's see. We've got some awards. We've got Golden Mike Awards.
Oh!
I knew that's what you were leading up to. I just didn't want to start with that.
It was either that or like I let you announce if you were on Threads or something.
I am on Threads, actually. I'm not just faxing them on Threads, and I'm still bitter that it takes your Instagram username. Where are you going to break the news, though? On Threads, on Twitter, both? How are you going to handle this now? This is big. Well, I'm really sucking at both, to be fair. I beg to differ, but well, no, I'm really sucking at the whole breaking news on both. I'm still on Twitter, and so it's the whole Threads thing is it's hard to combine the two because I'm not very good at Instagram, and so the tie, and so it's just a whole mess. But it's just it's one of those where I'm like, now hold on, fellas. Before we let Justin depart, one of our viewers is not happy that we have not said a word about the ACC in our conversation, Mr. McLeod. Thank you so much, David Franklin, for calling us out, because we actually listen to the people, unlike other shows that are on hiatus until August.
We've addressed the ACC in previous podcasts. We've talked at length about North Carolina hiring Megan Smith-Lyon. She's added, obviously, as we talked about, Victor, pitching coach, who you would go way back with from her days at St. Leo.
Maddie Hollop, who was a pitching coach at Marshall.
So that's a nice pick, right? And Lindsay Leftwich added Mike Bosch at NC State. They're the step. But I mean, really, it's kind of been a quiet ACC offseason otherwise, isn't it? I mean, what else you want us to add? I mean, it's been a quiet ACC offseason despite the fact that they had a bunch of head coaching openings and things like that. It's still been quiet, which kind of tells you something about the ACC outside those top four. I mean, Lindsay Leftwich going to NC State's the headliner. Yeah. But the ACC as a whole has lost more transfers than they've gained, at least high-power transfers, big-name transfers. And some of the coaching moves, we'll see. Here's the thing. Well, here's the concern. If you're an ACC fan, are you going to be able to keep up with the Joneses with this third full assistant against the SECs of the world, right? I think that's going to be the big question from the ACC move. And we don't know the answer to that moving forward. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, Florida State's been quiet so far in the portal. Clemson's added some decent nice pieces. Virginia Tech added, obviously, Josh Johnson from Mississippi State, the pitching coach. But again, really the headliners is Leftwich, NC State, and Megan Smith-Lyon. We went into that detailed a lot. I mean, I don't really want to get into who we think will have more success because, I mean, it's so, they're so different.
Early in the process.
Yeah,
I mean, what other transfers are going to be going to those.
I will say, I think Megan Smith-Lyon brings some energy to North Carolina. You can tell already her passion. She's got a tremendous passion for her school. In fact, I think we're going to re-air that interview we had with her a couple of years ago, Victor, right? Is that what we discussed? We'll probably do that at some point down the road about her passion. We'll probably have her back on. So I think that's good. I think Leftwich will be interesting. I like, the staff there adding an experience like Mike Bosch, but quite honestly, the ACC has been quiet compared to the other conferences. It's just a fact, right? I mean, tell me where the lie is there.
Tell me when we're telling lies.
Yeah.
to correctly quote.
That could change again, but I mean, right. I mean, the Jenny Allard one is an interesting move for Pitt coming over from Harvard. That's in an adjustment period. We did mention earlier her adding Lacey Shore on the staff. So, yeah. I mean, what else you want? That's your ACC love there. There you go.
And that's the thing. It's not that nothing's happened in the ACC. It's just outside of Lindsay Leftwich herself, everything that's happened in the ACC has kind of just been. There's no splashes. Florida State hasn't landed a big transfer.
Yeah,
it's not even like Mike Bosch at NC State and Josh Johnson at Virginia Tech are going to have impacts on their new programs.
Right.
There's some transfers sure who'll probably play in, but there's just not.
Well, you mentioned earlier, Justin, Mike Roberts leaving Virginia to go to Wisconsin.
And now Virginia's got to hire a whole new staff. Joanna Harden just got an extension. She's got to hire new assistants.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, but I do think that I'm glad you brought that up because the one thing I'm speaking to David, I'm glad he brought it up. But the one thing is it affects the ACC going into next year. The ACC could be a very interesting conference going into next year because, I mean, if Florida State doesn't pick up a dominant arm, what's going to happen? If Clemson's not able to protect Cagle in the lineup, what are they going to do? If Virginia Tech can't get Limley and Grind into a 1-2 punch or can't replicate the offense, Jamie Bailey and company graduating, what are they going to do? Duke, plenty of questions. So, and then what you see this offseason is you don't see anybody, I'm going to set you straight on the ACC. So it makes it interesting going into next year what things look like for the ACC.
And can they get somebody other than Florida State to represent the conference in Oklahoma City? I think that's the narrative now for the ACC.
Yeah.
You're asking a lot.
I'll just do this. Wow.
Wow. All right.
You know what? We're just going to end it on that. We're just going to let Justin go on that.
We were going to let him go a few minutes, but we got to hit the ACC talk there. Justin, always a pleasure. Golden Mikes, you said. Folks, find him on Threads. Find him on Twitter. He's got great scoops.
It's going to take a minute to get used to the Threads thing.
They lost Sidney Romero, by the way. Yes, Duke lost Sidney Romero to Oregon.
Yes, Sidney Romero now to Oregon.
And hired Taylor White from Charlotte.
You mentioned that earlier. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, Duke's just one of those.
That's
I have question marks. I had question marks going into this past year. I had question marks going into this coming year.
But they always seem to find a way.
All right, we're gonna let Justin go, guys, before people bring up more conferences for him to bring up.
Horizon League. Somebody bring up the Horizon League.
Don't tempt our people, Justin. They will. So just say goodbye to you before they do.
Yes, it's been a pleasure, Justin. We'll see you on Threads, Twitter. Enjoy.
Yeah, you will.
Thank you, Justin McLeod, joining us.
Oh my gosh.
All right. I mean, we could go for hours.
We could, but we won't.
No, let's start wrapping up here. We got a few more minutes, and then we're gonna call it a night. Because you got an announcement to make, Victor. You mentioned.
Yes. So I gotta get the proper music for the announcement for those of y'all. Boy. It's been a while since I've had a chance to play that music, but it's for good reason. Because coming up tomorrow night, yours truly will be on the call. Eric, you're unmuted. You're muted.
It's Monday night for those that are listening to the podcast.
Yeah, Monday night for those of you listening on the podcast. Yours truly will be on the call of the Texas Smoke and Smashes Sports Vipers as the WPF resumes the season. Myself and Jessica Burrows will be on the call for that. WProFastPitch.tv. You can get the dugout pass, get the rest of the season, and you'll lead up to the championship and the playoffs August 9th through 13th in Oxford, Alabama. But it'll start back up Monday night. Vipers, Smoke, yours truly, Jessica Burrows, will call that series for you on WProFastPitch.tv. So we will like for you to tune in like you were tuning into this episode of
Is
Minnesota.
that why you turned down FS1 and First Take, because you took this deal instead?
You see, but it goes back to what I referenced earlier, Eric. I want a partner that I know is going to be there all the time, and I know that we're not going to try and outshine or outdo the other. I understand. I work well with Jessica Burrows. Burrows works well with me. And if you listen to our episode 2 weeks ago that I did from Vieira with Jessica Burrows, we had a discussion about her favorite pregame meal, which I will have to make sure that will be in abundance for our calls this week.
What are you looking forward to second half of this WPF series?
Well, I'm intrigued to see, can the Vipers get some momentum going? When I was doing those games versus the Smoke in Oklahoma City, it felt like they were on the verge of getting a win streak together before they went into the midseason break. They lose a tough series versus Oklahoma City. I felt they got jobbed in one of the games where McKenna Smith appeared to hit a game-tying home run with 2 strikes in the bottom of the 7th with the team down by 1, and it went foul instead of fair. And ironically enough, Eric, and you will know what I'm talking about, Jerry, who coaches the Smash and Sports Vipers? Jerry Glasgow. What they was involved?
Oh, you kid! What are the odds?
Yeah. Louisiana, LSU, and Georgia Blair. Ironically enough, on a ball that was hit over the left field foul pole. I didn't think of it at the time because I was so stunned that happened. And ladies and gentlemen, the replay showed the ball did go fair. So I think Coach Glasgow had a very legitimate case in that particular situation. The Vipers like to get themselves some consistency, get some offense going. USSSA Pride having a tough season. Kayla Kowalik has hit very well for them this year. She's actually tops in the league in hitting. But my MVP for the WPF so far is Sinead Jefferson. Top 3 in the league in on-base percentage, top 3 in the league in RBI in batting average, leads the league in hits, tops in runs. She's doing everything for the Texas Smoke right now, and head coach Tori Tyson. And the Smoke, no surprise, they have a clear lead over Oklahoma City. They took the series when they played in Oklahoma City before the Spark went to Great Britain to take part of the Royal Challenge. By the way, in the future episode, we will be talking to Great Britain head coach and our friend from D1 Softball, Tara Henry, about her.
Is this a breaking news here? Do we need to get the music out here? What I don't know this.
And after her obligations with Team Great Britain in the World Cup of Softball comes to a close, we will catch up with Tara Henry. So that's down the line for our fans, because we want y'all to listen to what's going on with.
Get your last minute questions in before we wrap up here. Deal. Of course, you're going to be in Chicago at the end of August. You've already announced that.
Athletes Unlimited final weekend.
So you will be all in on AU on Athletes Unlimited.
All in on AU.
Yeah.
So we're the only podcast. We're the only podcast that talks both. We're one.
You're going to go all out with the coverage.
I'm going all out with my coverage of the WPF, and I'll be all in when I'm in Rosemont in August for the final week of Athletes Unlimited. And here's hoping there ain't no shenanigans at the airport. What I had to deal with last year, and for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Eric and I literally did a full episode with me being stuck in an airport in Chicago. There are 2 of them.
One of my favorite episodes of all time, because I'm listening to the background. Attention, flight. Like, oh, boy.
Yeah. Yeah. So
the other thing is crazy things happen when you're flying, because we had the one episode that one year where you were either boarding or getting off the plane when we had the blockbuster using D2.
I was making a connection from my vacation, where Rollins head coach Michelle Frew, quote unquote, retired. Little did we know she would end up at Charleston, and she would lead the Golden Eagles to the Super Regional 3 years later. So that happened. And of course, last year, ironically enough, while I landed in Rosemont, Eric breaks the news that Coach Hutch announces her retirement. So we had to redo the entire schedule of Inner Circle
on the fly. Yeah.
On the fly. So,
and that was capped off by Victor doing a show from the Chicago airport. Will we see? There you go.
What kind of shenanigans will we get into this year as I go all in again?
Major reminder, by the way, international big event going on in Ireland. You mentioned Ireland a couple times. Qualifications for the World Championships for next year going on there with the World Cup there. That's going to get going this week in Ireland. Puerto Rico, congrats to them. They win the Caribbean series over there in the Caribbean's up in
Alicio Ocasio getting the victory for Puerto Rico, winning the gold there. Turnavallo, part of that team
Gianna
as well.
Mancha and company. Yep. So they won that. That was over. That was good. Watch that a little bit as well. So a lot of international now taking the stage this next couple of weeks in July as more college news will come out. Obviously, we'll keep track of that. We got some interviews going to try to line up here as well on In the Circle. So keep us here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We might do some more lives like this. Friendly chat, super chats. Give out to some, help us out a little bit too. We're, Vic's traveling. It's a big budget, big salary. We had to match what the offers he was getting in the market.
It was a very robust market, I will say.
That's why Skip Bayless can't do a show anymore. He really's not upset about losing Shannon Sharpe. He's upset that he couldn't get you. He wanted you or Charles Barkley, and you both turned him down.
Nah, we're good. I'm good. I learned from Jenny Taft. So.
Wow. So make sure you keep it on the YouTube channel. Keep it on the podcast feed there. Catch up on the interviews there. Victor interviewed Jessica Burrows from Vieira there. Literally, right? The press box. That was
literally
fun.
In the press box in Vieira, ladies and gentlemen.
We might do some more of those coming down the road too.
Mm-hmm.
Some more remote shows.
Yes. We may do something with the WPF playoffs as well.
There you go.
Just saying.
You got a busy week ahead.
Yes, like I said, busy week ahead. Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Smash the Sports Vipers, Texas Smoke, WProFastPitch.tv. Myself, Jessica Burrows will call that game. And I may be doing another game in the WPF to end the week as well.
The voice of summer, Victor Anderson.
Yes.
So because of that, we're going to wrap it up here because he's got to rest the voice. Thanks to Justin McLeod for joining us on this edition of In the Circle. Thanks to all of you that participated on the show. We hope to get to most of your questions there. We'll try to do more of these down the road as well.
By the way, we do want to let everybody know we are officially going on once a week for the bulk of the summer. So we're going to be on Mondays for the podcast unless something major breaks. We'll do
with our luck probably will happen, especially with Victor on the air.
Which means a lot of craziness. Which means at some point during the series, someone's going to announce where they're going to the transfer portal, and everyone's going to have a fit, and Eric and I are going to have to do a special podcast or go live because of that. So just prepare yourselves.
That's correct. Keep it here on In the Circle on that. Thanks for all of you for tuning in. For Victor Anderson, I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of In the Circle. Top guys out.
Good night, Canada.